lecture video. This is not a synchronous lecture video. These are videos that are basically me narrating and giving some tricks, hints, and tips on the lecture slides that are posted in your weekly modules. So these will be a fairly common occurrence. Occasionally it won't be me, it might be a video that someone has already done, who oftentimes has much prettier animation and pictures than I could ever possibly accomplish. So figured do you the favor, give you the person who actually knows how to use video editing software to help you get through your material. So here on our front page, again, my name is Dr. Jessica Sardo. This is my email. My syllabus also has a phone number you can reach me at. The phone number is not a personal number, it's through a Google Voice. So if there's something going on, you can even text the number. None of this comes directly to me, it all goes through my Gmail, but it actually comes through my Gmail much quicker than our Canvas, or not our, well, our Canvas email and just like our district email. But please don't use it for general questions. That would be more like, you know, I'm sick, my computer exploded, my power's out, that kind of stuff. General questions, please submit through Canvas or through the district email. It's a much easier way for me to keep track of your questions and make sure that I actually answer all of them. So here's a picture of our textbook. Hopefully you've been going through our week 1 module. I just sent an announcement out. It is about 11 o'clock on Wednesday night. Sent out an announcement that all the Cengage material and issues have been resolved, so you can go ahead and start going through that process to get an account, pay for a subscription, and start using the ebook and the online homework. Once you pay for a subscription, you will also have access through Cengage to get a rental textbook if you are more of a physical reader kind of person. I'll also say this, you need the subscription either way. You have to have it because we are utilizing OWL for lots of reasons. If you want a physical textbook to read, to write in, that is yours to own forever and ever, send me an email. I can give you some resources of where to get a textbook that's an older edition that is significantly cheaper that you can hold on to, that won't be a rental and things like that. So primarily for today, we are going to be discussing some of the prerequisite material from Chem 152. I'm just highlighting a couple things. There is an entire list of prerequisite material that is posted in the week 1 module. I would strongly encourage you to go look at that. These are things that I am not going to cover in any or much detail. I might do a little bit, but it's not our focus. It's what you've already learned. We're moving on. Your quiz 3 and your exam 1 will have a lot of these prereq materials on it simply because we need them. So we need to make sure that they're kind of present and fresh in your memory. So that's why we're doing this. So again, one of the big ones is dimensional analysis. This is, the unit factor method, also sometimes called that, but basically this is how we convert units. So, a simple problem would be something like kilometers to converting to miles. Obviously, in a chemistry class, we're doing more of things like grams of KNO3 produces how many moles of water under this chemical reaction. Things like that. So we're changing units in that way. Or if I have this many atoms of some molecule, how many grams is that? So those are the unit conversions that we are going to really kind of be our bread and butter with. But this type of methodology of dimensional analysis can be utilized with anything. So here are just some examples. You do not need to memorize these conversions. I will provide them for you. Again, I've mentioned this in a number of different places, and I'm going to mention it again here. This is an online class. We expect that it becomes an open note class. Open note does not mean open textbook. Open note does not mean open computer. The notes are expected to be physical pieces of paper. Go buy a notebook. You cannot have another tab open during a test with your conversions or anything like that. Those will not be acceptable. So if you feel that you are someone who needs to write down Avogadro's number for some reason, that needs to be on a physical piece of paper. Same thing will go for a periodic table. And the same thing will go for a calculator. You need to have a physical calculator. It cannot be your phone. For obvious reasons, we can't have you using your phone. Again, this is where the proctoring software comes in. So you need a calculator. I really encourage you to get a notebook. You should also do your homework in that notebook. That way when you have questions, the first thing I'm going to ask you is, where did you get stuck? Show me your work. You're going to save time by being able to take a picture and send it to me of where you're at so I can know how I can best help you. So again, when we're doing dimensional analysis, we always have a start or a given. We always have a want, right? Our given units are wanted units, and it's a matter of the conversion factors that get us there. So again, we can have very, very, very long conversion factors in between. Something as simple as, how many seconds are in an hour is a relatively short dimensional analysis conversion. For example, in the one we have here, a Japanese car is advertised having a gas mileage of 15 kilometers per liter. What is this rating in miles per gallon? So again, we are capable of changing the units on both sides. In our given, we're given kilometers per liter. In our want, we're going to miles per gallon. So we can do a lot of conversions, both on the numerator and in the denominator. Obviously, this is a science class, and I know we're in America, and so we've just decided that for some reason we're going to continue using Fahrenheit while the rest of the world has gone on to Celsius. We will, especially when we get to our gases, end up using Kelvin, and we'll talk about Kelvin when we get to gases, why we use Kelvin. Just one of those little side notes. If you really want to, like, nails on a chalkboard for a scientist, you say degrees Kelvin, or, Kelvin degrees. Kelvin doesn't have a degrees with it. Like, you wouldn't say, third or 273.15 degrees Kelvin. You would just say 273.15 Kelvin. We don't, like, how you say 32 degrees Fahrenheit or 0 degrees Celsius. There's no degree. See how the degree symbol is not in the Kelvin? There's no degree in it. It's not really a big deal one way or the other. It's just one of those things you should be aware of. You should be comfortable being able to convert between Fahrenheit, Celsius, and Kelvin. So again, if that's something that you're going to need to add to a note card, that's something you're going to have to need to know how to do. You're also going to have to need to know how to calculate density. So density, right, when we think of density, it's how much matter is in a certain volume. And the way I was always taught it was the DMV. So the DMV triangle kind of helps you always remember what you need to do. If you have a mass, if you want a mass, you would multiply the density times the volume. If you wanted a volume, you would divide mass by the density. Right? If you wanted the density, you would take the mass over the volume. So it's a handy dandy little way to kind of remember what's going on. Now, one of the things that's important that we'll get to in a little bit in this section is the fact that densities sometimes have units that are things that have exponents in them. So your second homework, homework number 2 in Cengage, will give you a lot of really nice practice with going through and doing exponents with math and things like that. Periodic table, again, in your prereq list, I tell you which elements you are expected to know the name and the symbol of. You don't need to know the atomic number, you just need to know the symbol, okay? That way you could be like, ah, yes, carbon, carbon is C, that's number 6, that kind of thing. So there's a list in the prereqs. You are expected to know those ones. You need to memorize them. So that might be a flashcard kind of situation for you. Again, I want to stress that even though this is open note, do not write yourself a textbook of notes. That's not going to help you learn anything. Please remember that you're going to have to go take 201 most likely at some point, or go even higher, and at some point you're going to have to actually memorize these things and know how to do them. So we want to be obvious in terms of the fact that we understand you are at home, but at the same time, don't use it as a crutch. You want to challenge yourself so that you are succeeding and pushing yourself forward. The other important thing in these first 2 chapters is dealing with nomenclature. So naming compounds. You should be comfortable naming the different types of compounds, binary compounds. Again, really good homework set that will take you through a lot of practice on this. So again, if this is kind of dusting off the cobwebs for you, I really encourage you to go through, read the textbook as well as doing the homework. Go through these. Make sure you're comfortable with this. Again, I cannot stress this enough. I'm just highlighting some important prereq topics here. This is all prereq still. Okay, you should know these things coming into it. You should know what a cation is. You should know what an anion is. You should know how to name these compounds. So I have 3 examples for you here: CSF, AlCl3, and LiH. And these are the names of them. As we get going further in the semester, when I have these slides where I give you practice problems, I will pause. And I would encourage you to actually pause the video there and try working them out on your own first. It's very, very easy to say, yeah, I got it, I know how to do that. We all say that, but we don't got it. You actually need to practice it. So take a minute, pause the video, write it down, try it. If you have access to a printer and ink and that kind of thing, these slides would be really great. The PDF of these slides would be really great to print out and then take notes on those. That would be basically what I would encourage you to do if you were in a face-to-face class with me, because there's a lot of information on here and it's overwhelming to try and write it all down. So if you could instead just have this information and then supplement it with notes, would be very, very good. Please remember that there are transition metals, and the idea of a transition metal is the ones that are going to have the Roman numerals with them, and you should be comfortable understanding what those Roman numerals are. You should be able to do Roman numerals 1 through 5. So again, please go ahead and review how we name metals that are transition metals. So we go through, we know that we name the cation first, we give it the oxidation, or not, excuse me, we give it the oxidation number we're going to talk about later, but which is very similar to this, but we give it the transition metal, the number, right, the charge of the cation that is associated with it, and then whatever the anion is, we cut off the ending and add "ide." Most students have a much easier time going from the formula to the name. More students struggle going from the name to the formula, though, because we have to do a little bit of math to figure out that there's 2 oxygens for every 1 magnesium 4. So again, these are things that you will need to kind of practice. If you're sitting there going, oh yeah, I kind of remember something about that, this weekend is going to be your time to start brushing up on these materials. Again, we're just kind of showing, these are the general kind of charges associated with different cations and some of the anions that are very, very common that we will be using a lot. Polyatomic ions. For this class, we do expect that you will know the names of a lot of these. Again, it is an open notes situation, so I understand that you probably we'll print this out and this will become one of your resources. However, please again remember, especially for 201 and moving forward in your chemistry career, it will be expected that some of the more common ones you will be comfortable with, so hydroxide, sulfate, sulfite, nitrate, nitrite, that you know what these are. I would encourage you when you're looking at these, I have this little box up here, what's the difference between an 8 and a nite? Knowing this would mean less to memorize. So if you look at, for example, the series of the 8s and ites, nitrate, nitrite, sulfate, sulfite. If we notice, we are going, as we go from 8 to ite, we remove one oxygen in both of these cases. There was a carbonite, which, you know, it's not Star Wars, but whatever, would be a CO2 minus 2. So this is a pattern that we see in the naming of this, chlorate, chlorite. So if you do that, you only have to memorize one of them. Maybe you only memorize the 8s, and then you know that the ites of all of them are just one less oxygen. So that just cut like a whole bunch of polyatomic ions that you have to memorize the formula for in half. The other thing you'll need to know is when we have our non-ionic compounds, our covalent compounds, our two nonmetals bound together. When we do that, we have to use these prefixes. You should be comfortable with the prefixes 1 through 10, so mono through deca. And here I have some examples for you. Again, most students with, ironically, the non-ionic binary compounds, it's easier to go from the formula to the name because you have all the numbering and you just have to call it out. It becomes a little trickier when you have the name and you need the formula. Again, here's just an image from your text in terms of if you're more of like a flowchart, you know, reasonability kind of person, how to think about these different namings and what would be a part of each of these naming systems. Again, this is a review, so hopefully maybe you still have your notes from 152. That might be helpful. Again, like I said, the online homeworks will be a really great resource for kind of help getting your brain to jumpstart and rethink about these topics that you probably haven't thought about all summer or maybe even longer. The last nomenclature that we're going to talk about are some of the acids. Again, you should be able to name our simple acids, so things like HF, HCl, HBr, right? These are our hydro acids, so basically using hydro in front, followed by the name of the anion and the word acid. So again, some examples for you. Lastly, I want to talk, real quick, I didn't make a slide for it simply because I have a whole section in the homework for it, but in addition to these hydro acids, you also need to know your oxy acids. Oxy acids are going to come from acids that are made from your polyatomic ions. So this last slide is just talking about a plan for success, excuse me. This week you should be gathering all your materials. I like the idea of a 3-ring binder. It's a good way to hold and organize everything. Again, that means that instead of buying a notebook, you have a 3-ring binder with just sheets of paper in it that you can kind of add and take out. Again, please remember, no electronic notes will be allowed on assessments. Getting your textbook and ebook, please go look at week 1's module. All that is now set up. A calculator, you need a scientific calculator. Phones and computer calculators are not going to be permissible on quizzes and exams, so you're going to have a means to calculate things where you're not using your computer or your phone. Make sure you're very comfortable with these prereq topics. If you aren't, start reviewing and practicing now. I've set up the homework in a way to kind of force you to go through it, but you're probably going to need some more practice than just that. Email me. Let's do office hours. Let's Zoom to talk about any issues you're having. Our quiz on week 2, August 24th. starting at 9:35 in the morning, our quiz will be on these prereq topics, okay? I will say that again. At 9:35 in the morning, you will start your quiz on these prereq topics. The quiz is timed. It's for the first half hour of class. So you've got to come to class. You've got to be on Canvas that first half hour to be able to take this quiz. Just like if you were in a face-to-face class and you need to show up to class to take the quiz. Start doing your OWL homework online. I know I post a lot of homework, but it is amazing practice, and it will really force you to learn what's going on. Oh, I didn't update this. Because of our issue with Cengage, the first 3 homework sets are now due on August 25th at 8 a.m. in the morning. But you should do them ahead of time because that's after the quiz, which doing the homework ahead of time would help you study for the quiz. And then you should start the reading in the text. Chapters 1 and 2 are review. I don't directly give out points for reading, especially now. I don't know how I would assess that you read the textbook, but obviously those materials will then be on tests and quizzes, so I guess that's how I'm assessing you. Next week we will start Chapter 3. We'll do Chapters 3 and 4, so I'm just giving you a heads up. We will have a very strong focus on 3.9 through 3.11, but the earlier portions of Chapter 3 also fall under those prereq topics. So again, you might want to look at those as well for our quiz on the 24th. If you have any other questions, please feel free to email me. Office hours, we can set up Zoom, but I'm hoping that we can kind of get settled. I know the first 2 weeks are always chaos for everyone. It's when we're trying to get materials for class, everyone's trying to figure out how all the stuff is going to work out. And then you kind of get in a groove, and it's like, okay, I know what to expect, I know what we're doing, and you can kind of plug along through it. But if any time you are confused or need help with something, please let me know, and I will do my best to get you the resources you need. So far, very few people have supplied me with any DSPS accommodations. You have the first 2 weeks of class to do so, so please make sure I get those if that is something you need, so that we can talk about proctoring and any of the accommodations that you might need. Alright, that's it. This was the end of our first lecture video, so congratulations, and start working on your homework and your other assignments, and I will talk to you soon.